Kalbrenner's hands were stained with coolant grease again, his shirt halfway soaked, and his patience almost as thin as the plasma conduits he was desperately trying to repair. The orbital outpost wasn't much, mostly a floating collection of metal tubes and blinking consoles that smelled faintly like burnt coffee and despair. But it was home, at least until something exploded, which seemed to be a daily possibility. "Fix the damn coolant leak before it fries the whole sector, Cal," barked Lieutenant Marv, pacing behind him like a caffeinated hyena. "This station can barely afford the downtime." Cal grinned without turning. "If this thing fries, I'm blaming the guy who designed the coolant lines like a drunken spider's web." He twisted a wrench. "Also, I'm pretty sure this leak started because some overzealous janitor decided to flush alien goo down the wrong pipe." Marv snorted. "Only you would know the official janitorial sabotage code names." Before Cal could respond, the intercom crackled, and a cool, clipped voice echoed through the cramped maintenance bay. "Attention all personnel. The Thalren Royal Delegation has docked. Strict security protocols are in effect. Unauthorized contact with the delegation is prohibited." Cal rolled his eyes. "Ah, yes. The high and mighty royal tourists. Bet they've got more bodyguards than sense." Marv shrugged. "You're on cleanup duty. Try not to get vaporized by royal etiquette." Cal snorted. "If vaporized, please send my oil-stained hat back to my sister." As the massive airlock hissed open, Cal caught sight of the delegation. They were impressive, towering figures draped in fabrics that shimmered like the night sky, their presence marked by a kind of silent command that made even the station's notoriously grumpy AI lower its volume. And then he saw her, Sarava, the princess of the Thalren Dominion. She stood apart, not just because of the ornate robes or the faint glow of her silver hair, but because of her long ears, graceful, tapering crescents that flicked with every wordless emotion. Her gaze, sharp and unreadable, swept the room like a starship scanner on alert. Cal thought she looked bored. Royalty bored with protocol was a dangerous combination. He was halfway through a sarcastic quip about the cosmic irony of a princess looking like she wanted to be anywhere else, when his wrench slipped and clattered to the floor. Sarava's eyes flicked to him, unimpressed. "You there, mechanic," she said, voice smooth but firm. "Is this the standard of maintenance on a station hosting a royal delegation?" Cal picked up his wrench, gave an exaggerated bow. "Depends. Are you offering a raise or just a royal roasting?" She arched an eyebrow. "Neither. I suggest you improve your workmanship before my patience runs out." Cal grinned. "Noted, Your Highness. But if patience were a fuel source, this station would have exploded yesterday." She allowed herself a small smile, almost imperceptible. "Do not mistake my courtesy for weakness, human." "Well, I don't know about weakness, but I do know I'm the only person here who can make this station run without it sounding like a dying star." He glanced at the flickering coolant gauge. "And right now, that's a pretty low bar." Sarava crossed her arms. "You speak freely for one so inconsequential." Cal shrugged, wiping his hands on a rag. "Being inconsequential has its perks. I get to say what no one else dares without a security detail turning me into space dust." Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, something shifted. Maybe curiosity, maybe amusement, or maybe she just appreciated that someone wasn't drowning in reverence. The AI's voice chimed in, abruptly polite. "Princess Sarava, your presence is requested for formal diplomatic proceedings." Sarava sighed, a sound like the settling of ancient stars. "Very well." She turned on her heel, ears flicking once more. Cal called after her, "Hey, princess! If you ever need a good joke about intergalactic plumbing unions, you know where to find me." She paused, then, surprisingly, laughed, a soft, genuine sound that didn't quite belong in the sterile corridors of politics and protocol. "Perhaps I shall," she said over her shoulder. As her entourage swept past, Cal noticed she held something small in her gloved hand, a carved wooden bird. Curious, he raised an eyebrow, but didn't ask. Some mysteries, he figured, were better left to royal minds. He turned back to the coolant line, muttering to himself, "Great. Now I've got a princess to impress and a station that's leaking like a sieve. Could be worse. Could be a space pirate." Somewhere deep in the shadows of the outpost, the AI quietly queued up a song with a vaguely romantic tune. An Earth ballad from the late 20th century. Completely inappropriate but oddly fitting. Cal shook his head and smiled. Yeah, I get it. Things are about to get interesting. And somewhere, just beneath the surface of duty and decorum, a small, unexpected kindness had just begun to ripple through the stars. Sarava sat alone in her private quarters aboard the sleek Thalren flagship, the carved wooden bird resting on her polished desk like an outlaw relic from a forgotten world. Her fingers traced the delicate contours absently, long ears twitching with an unfamiliar sensation. It was not boredom, not irritation, nor the usual armor of royal detachment. It was something else, a faint echo of warmth that made her question everything she thought she knew about formality and power. The royal aide, a thin, nervous creature named Voran, hovered by the door. "Princess, your schedule is fully booked with diplomacy and security briefings. It is imperative you maintain focus." Sarava raised a slender hand, silencing him. "Voran, since when has ruling an empire required so much talking and so little listening?" Voran blinked. "Since the invention of the hypercom network, Your Highness." She smirked. "Ah, yes, the glorious age when everyone speaks and no one understands." Voran cleared his throat, eyes darting to the wooden bird. "May I ask about this?" Sarava's gaze softened. "A human keepsake, a gift from a mechanic named Cal Brenner." "A mechanic?" Voran's voice was a mix of disbelief and protocol-induced horror. "That is highly irregular, Princess. Commoners are not permitted proximity to the royal person." "Apparently exceptions exist," she replied with a mischievous gleam. "Or perhaps I am the exception." Voran shuffled his papers nervously. "Your Highness, this could be interpreted as a diplomatic breach." She raised a brow. "Or a diplomatic breakthrough, something to consider." Meanwhile, aboard the outpost, Cal found himself on an unlikely tour. Not one of those polished, boring galactic sightseeing tours with holographic explanations and faintly robotic guides, but a hands-on expedition through the labyrinth of pipes, wires, and blinking consoles that kept the station barely afloat. Sarava insisted on accompanying him, much to the protest of her security detail, who were ordered to stay exactly 20 meters behind. "This is highly unorthodox," grumbled Captain Eldrin, eyeing Cal like he might spontaneously combust. Cal flashed a grin at Sarava. "Trust me, if this place was a spaceship in a holovid, it'd be the scrappy underdog with a heart of gold and a cargo hold full of duct tape." Sarava's long ears twitched as she tried, and failed, to suppress a smile. "You have a way with words, Cal Brenner." "Ah, so you notice the poetry of interstellar plumbing unions," he quipped. "They're the unsung heroes. Without them, you'd be floating in space faster than you can say quantum meltdown." Their banter echoed down the maintenance corridors as they stopped at an ancient coolant valve. Cal poked it with a greasy finger. "See this? Looks innocent, but it's a ticking time bomb. If this goes, we're all going to have a real bad day." Sarava leaned in, eyes narrowed. "And what do you suggest?" "Fix it, and pray the station's AI doesn't decide to take a nap mid-repair." The AI, an overly polite entity named Marvin, suddenly piped up. "I assure you, Princess Sarava, my nap mode has been disabled until further notice." Cal chuckled. "Yeah, we've had a few close calls. Once Marvin decided to recite Shakespeare during a reactor alert. Made things poetic but terrifying." Sarava laughed outright this time. "You humans have an odd sense of humor." "Odd? Maybe. Effective. Definitely." Cal wiped his hands on a rag. "Humor keeps us sane when things go sideways. Which is often." The tour continued, with Sarava asking questions that were more curious than diplomatic. "How do you manage to keep this ancient relic functional?" Cal shrugged. "Lots of prayers, duct tape, and a little bit of luck." She shook her head in disbelief. "You're reckless." "Maybe, but it works." Their conversation drifted from pipes to planets, from starship engines to strange customs. Cal found himself enjoying her company more than expected, not just because she laughed at his terrible jokes, but because beneath the regal exterior was someone tired of rules and eager for something real. As the tour ended, Sarava surprised him. "I want to learn more about your world, Cal. Not the polished, diplomatic version, The real one. Cal raised an eyebrow. You sure? It's messy, chaotic, and occasionally smells like burnt toast. Perfect, she said with a smirk. Messy and real beats perfect and hollow. Back in her quarters, the carved bird caught the dim light of the distant stars, a small symbol of an unlikely connection, growing stronger with every passing moment. Meanwhile, Marvin softly hummed another Earth ballad, this time a little less awkward and a bit more hopeful. The news arrived like a comet streaking through the otherwise routine hum of the station, a transmission from Thalren's capital, terse and urgent. An assassination attempt had been made on the royal family. Sarava was to depart immediately. Security protocols escalated, and the diplomatic delegation was hastily reorganized for departure. Cal learned of this while elbow-deep in a conduit that stubbornly refused to cooperate. The station's AI, Marvin, interrupted with an unusually serious tone. Alert! Royal evacuation scheduled in T-3 hours. Recommend cessation of all unauthorized interactions with Princess Sarava. Cal wiped his greasy hands on his pants. Unauthorized interactions? What am I? Classified space debris? Marvin replied, You are designated non-essential personnel, in proximity to Princess Sarava. Cal snorted. Non-essential, huh? Tell that to my duct tape. Sarava appeared in the maintenance bay just as Cal was wrestling with a recalcitrant coolant valve. Her expression was tight, but her ears flicked with an unmistakable tension. Cal, she said, voice calm but firm, I am leaving soon. Yeah, heard the news. You okay? Cal asked, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. She gave a small wry smile. If I told you I was, I would be lying. Politics is a cruel game. Cal leaned against a console. You know, I once tried to fix a hyperdrive with a roll of duct tape and a prayer. The hyperdrive exploded. Politics sounds safer. Her laugh was brief but genuine. I might trade places with that hyperdrive. She pulled out the wooden bird from beneath her sash, holding it tightly. This little thing means more than you know. Cal grinned. Yeah, I thought it was just a weird souvenir. To me, it is a symbol of something foreign and strangely comforting. They stood in the echoing bay, two worlds colliding silently. Will you come back? Cal asked, half joking, half hopeful. Sarava looked away. I must. My duty calls. But this place, you and your ridiculous jokes, they have become unexpected anchors. Cal smirked. I'll be here, fixing pipes and making jokes no one gets. Suddenly Marvin interjected in a dramatically romantic tone. Perhaps a duet is in order, Princess. Don't Go Breaking My Heart by Elton John and Kiki D. Sarava rolled her eyes but smiled. Marvin, cease musical torture. Cal laughed. Yeah, Marvin, save it for the after party. As preparations for departure intensified, Sarava sought one last moment with Cal in the quiet corridor outside the maintenance bay. I don't expect you to understand my world, she said softly, but you have shown me a kindness I have never known. Cal scratched his head. Well, I can't say I'm great with royal etiquette, but I'm good at being a decent human. Sarava's gaze softened. That is more than enough. Before the final boarding call, she pressed the wooden bird into his hand. For when you need to remember that even the smallest gesture can bridge galaxies. Cal looked at the bird, then back at her. If you ever come back, I'll have a dozen new jokes ready. Her smile flickered into a tender glow. I will hold you to that. The airlock hissed, and Sarava stepped onto the shuttle, her silhouette framed by the cold light of the stars. As the shuttle disappeared into the void, Cal turned back to his tools. Same station, different story, he muttered. Marvin played a mournful violin solo as Cal whispered to the empty bay. Come back safe, Princess. And maybe next time, bring me some alien coffee. The station sighed, the coolant dripped, and somewhere across the galaxy, a carved wooden bird waited for its story to continue. Weeks stretched into months, and the orbital outpost hummed its familiar tune of recycled air and faulty machinery. Cal Brenner returned to his daily grind, tightening leaking conduits, recalibrating power nodes, and telling the AI, Marvin, to tone down the playlist of melancholy Earth ballads. The bird carved from polymer scrap sat on his workbench, a silent reminder of a princess who had vanished into the cold expanse of space. Marvin, ever the melodramatic companion, announced one morning, "Cal, I have taken the liberty of composing an elegy titled Ode to a Wooden Bird. Would you like to hear it?" Cal groaned. "No thanks, Marvin, unless it involves duct tape and hyperdrive explosions." But the outpost was not as quiet as it seemed. Far away on Thalrin's gleaming homeworld, Princess Sarava was stirring more trouble than protocol allowed. News feeds buzzed with whispers of a royal scandal. Sarava had installed a sculpture in the palace gardens, a sculpture that looked suspiciously like a wooden bird, carved in intricate detail and set atop a pedestal emblazoned with human script. Small kindnesses matter. The palace officials were aghast. A human symbol? On Thalaren's soil? This is unprecedented, Sarava responded with a rare flash of humor during a council meeting. If we wait for the perfect moment to show kindness, we'll be waiting forever. Besides, if a little wooden bird can rattle the cages of tradition, maybe it's time the cages got rattled. Back at the outpost, Cal received a discreet package. No return address. Inside was a slender hairpin forged from alien metal, shaped like a crescent bird. A note slipped beneath the pin read, "For when I come back, so you'll recognize me without the guards." Cal held the pin up to the light. "Well, Marvin, I think I'm officially on a secret list." Marvin replied, "Congratulations, Cal. Your security clearance has increased from scrapyard scoundrel to potential romantic interest. Would you like me to update your resume?" Cal chuckled, pocketing the pin. "Save it for the next crisis." Word spread fast through the station's grapevine. Guards whispered about the mechanic who had won the princess's heart, while Cal just tried to keep his coolant lines from leaking. His jokes became less about cosmic plumbing unions and more about the absurdity of fate. One evening, while recalibrating the station's gravity stabilizers, Cal muttered, "You know, I never thought a wooden bird and a princess could turn my life upside down. But here we are." Marvin, unusually sincere, replied, "Life is unpredictable, Cal, but unpredictable can be interesting." Cal laughed. "I'll take interesting over boring any day." Meanwhile, on Thalren, Sarava was navigating the treacherous waters of politics with a new fire. She delayed peace negotiations, advocating for open communication with humanity, and championed a philosophy that small, sincere gestures could change even the coldest alliances. The Palace AI, a far more serious and less musical counterpart to Marvin, monitored her actions with concern. "Princess Sarava," it intoned, "your recent decisions deviate significantly from royal protocol. Risk of unrest is high." Sarava grinned. "Unrest is sometimes necessary to wake the stars from their slumber." Back on the outpost, Cal found himself waiting, not just for repairs, but for something more. He traced the contours of the hairpin, imagining the day Sarava would return, no longer bound by protocol or guards, just herself. Marvin interrupted his reverie. "May I suggest a playlist for your upcoming reunion? Perhaps something with fewer violin solos and more upbeat rhythms?" Cal smiled. "Good call, Marvin. We'll need a soundtrack for whatever comes next." As the stars outside flickered with distant possibilities, a small wooden bird sat quietly on Cal's bench, a symbol of unexpected connections, of laughter shared in quiet corridors, and of a future still unwritten. And somewhere, across the galaxy, the princess was planning her next move. The station's lights flickered once, twice, then plunged the entire maintenance corridor into darkness. Cal Brenner muttered, "Great. Blackout, right when I'm finally getting used to this quiet." He fumbled for a flashlight, cursing the ancient wiring like it was an enemy pilot with a grudge. As the beam cut through the shadows, the unmistakable silhouette appeared. Tall, graceful, ears catching the faint glow like twin crescents of moonlight. "Princess Sarava," Cal said, blinking in disbelief. "Took you long enough." Sarava grinned, holding up the crescent-shaped hairpin, the same one he had kept safe all these months. "Had to make sure I could sneak in without causing a station-wide panic," she joked. Cal chuckled. "You're going to get me vaporized for security breaches." "Then you'll have a great story," she said, stepping closer. "Or at least something to tell Marvin." Speaking of Marvin, the AI's voice piped up from the speakers, overly chipper despite the blackout. "Welcome back, Princess Sarava. May I recommend Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles to celebrate your arrival? Cal rolled his eyes. Marvin, please spare us the 20th century nostalgia. The power hummed back to life, lights flickering on as if signaling a new beginning. Sarava looked around, taking in the worn pipes and blinking consoles with a fondness that surprised Cal. I see some things never change, she said. Neither do some people, Cal replied, his grin widening. Still fixing leaks and making bad jokes. Sarava laughed softly. I miss that. They stood in the quiet corridor, two unlikely friends bound by a small wooden bird and a galaxy of unspoken possibilities. Why did you come back? Cal asked after a moment. Sarava's gaze softened. Because I realize that duty doesn't have to be a cage. It can be a choice. And I choose this. Us. Cal swallowed, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the station's failing coolant systems. I never thought a human mechanic and an alien princess could find common ground. Neither did I, she admitted. But kindness, it's universal. Marvin interrupted with perfect timing. I shall now play Love Will Keep Us Together. Shall I cue the dance lights, or do you prefer to keep it low-key? Cal laughed. Let's save the dance party for later, Marvin. Sarava reached out, her hand finding his. It was simple, sincere, the same small gesture that had started it all. Whatever happens next, she said, we face it together. Cal squeezed her hand. Sounds like the best job I've ever had. The station buzzed around them, a symphony of life and possibility. The wooden bird sat on Cal's workbench, no longer just a trinket, but a symbol of unexpected friendship, courage, and the power of small, sincere gifts. As stars shimmered beyond the viewport, two worlds had collided, not with the bang of cosmic weapons or the cold protocols of diplomacy, but with a laugh, a gift, and a promise. And in that moment, the galaxy felt just a little bit smaller.